Mr. President, I understand the pressure that you are under from every side. But the wall at our southern border is a promise that you made, ran on, got elected on, and must keep. But more than that, it is your legacy, and you cannot allow them to force you to compromise. So here we are, days before the Christmas holiday, and you are facing the most important issues that Americans elected you to confront: your promise to build the wall. Now, there's never been a president more dedicated to fulfilling a campaign promise than you. Unlike just about every other president in recent memory, you say what you mean and you mean what you say. That is why your base is so loyal to you and continues to grow. You have done what no other president has had the fortitude to do. The wall is no different, and you must fulfill this fundamental promise to the American people. You cannot buckle. Now, there's no question that on January 3rd, your presidency will face even more obstruction and resistance by the Democrats than you have seen in the last 2 years. They will stop at nothing. They are callously salivating at the prospect of your collapse. The only way to go into this is to let Pelosi and Schumer know that now they are going to have a fight every step of the way. They will have to deal with the toxic environment they created. No one has your strength, Mr. President, your perseverance, or your determination. You instinctively understand what needs to be done and how to do it. And you need to build this wall. Your meeting in the Oval Office with Pelosi and Schumer was a turning point in your presidency. The arrogance, disrespect, and condescension by these two members of Congress was shocking. Schumer unable to look you in the eye, and Pelosi instructing you the wall was a non-starter and that you did not have the votes.
You will not win. The fact is, you do not have the votes in the House.
Nancy, I do. And we need border security. Nancy.
We'll find out.
Well, Mr. President, she found out you had the votes. She is a liar and an obstructionist. And I might add, the whole lot of them are hypocrites.
Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple.
Look, I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked.
These hypocrites wanted a wall until Donald Trump wanted a wall. Until Trump promised a wall. They simply will do whatever they can to stop you from succeeding. Their hatred of you, Mr. President, is so intense and so vindictive that they would rather destroy you in America than destroy the drug cartels, gang members, and the human traffickers coming over our border. Schumer, Pelosi, and their gang of haters ignore the fact that 90% of the heroin coming into our country, killing our loved ones, comes from Mexico. And Nancy and Chuck, you don't want to put a wall up to stop that? We have spent tens of billions of dollars to fight heroin, but you don't want to spend $5 billion to put up a wall to stop heroin for good? Nancy and Chuck, you both know this year ICE agents seized enough fentanyl to kill every person in the United States. But you don't want a wall to stop it. Don't you want to stop the human traffickers, the child smuggling, and the coyotes raping young women claiming that they're family? Isn't this what every law-abiding American wants? What is with this open border nonsense? And you call us racist, heartless, and cruel? I'll tell you what's heartless. It's the number of Americans that are killed by drugs pouring over our porous, namby-pamby fence border. It's the number of illegals in Democrats' sanctuary cities who kill innocent Americans. You want to throw down the welcome mat to illegals and with open arms shower them with health care and education and housing. Yes, you will have a fight from every side. But what is clear to the American people is that these Democrats have no respect for the rule of law and want to attack it. Their sanctuary cities endanger the safety of our citizens. It's just insanity. The only time the rule of law matters to these left-wing haters is when it's the campaign finance law. But the protection of our country and its citizens, who gives a damn? So we shut down the government. Okay, it's been shut down 20 times. Let's be clear. All essential personnel continue to work. The shutdown does not affect Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, the military, or other essential branches. And after the shutdown, all the other non-essential employees are paid. So stop with the rhetoric. 75% of our government is open. And the wall is the will of the American people. So now there's talk of compromise. For those of you who want a lesser amount than $5 billion, that number is simply inadequate. How many caravans need to come through before we realize that we need a wall? And the money from last year's budget can only be used to fix a fence. And for those of you who think that's enough, consider this. An 8-month pregnant woman was able to scale the fence to get to the American side to deliver her baby. Do you really think that that is the kind of wall we need? Mr. President, the American people are tired of our government standing with illegals over American citizens. They are tired of the destruction of the rule of law in our country and everything our founding fathers fought for. And I don't care who owns the shutdown, and neither do they. We voted for you, and you have not failed us. So while the Senate goes home for Christmas, you remain in Washington. I am pleading with you on behalf of the American people who believe with every fiber of their being that if anyone can get it done, you are the one who can and will. This is your moment in history. Just do it. Thank you, Mr. President. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. # Judge Janine.
For more insight on the impacts of this partial shutdown, let's bring in Reactionary Times editorial director Julio Rivera and former Obama campaign foreign policy advisor and former State Department official David Tafuri. Julio, David, thanks for joining us here to talk about this partial shutdown that has just begun to get underway. I want to talk a little about who the winners and the losers are. People are talking about this and looking at this going on in Washington. I mean, it's the weekend before Christmas, people are wrapping frantically. They're making their last-minute shopping. Maybe they're thinking about what cool movie they might see on Tuesday. Are people tuned into this right now, Julio?
Well, yeah, I think that they should be if they do care about things like border security. I mean, it was a rallying cry of the 2016 election, and people right now, the Democrats in particular, are playing politics with safety. I mean, this is something that's directly attributing to the opioid crisis. I mean, gang members are pouring in, drugs are pouring in. I mean, how many more, Kate Steinleys and Molly Tibbetts do we have to have? So I think people are engaged. It doesn't affect people in the way that the Democrats are making it out to be. I mean, most people don't even feel a government shutdown in most cases.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of Americans won't be affected, but there are hundreds of thousands of people that do work for the government could potentially be affected. The furloughed, those that might have to wait to get a paycheck, potentially until after the holidays, maybe money they're expecting that they've already spent. David, do you think people are watching, and do you think they're concerned about those government employees at the very least in the midst of this partial shutdown?
I think that this was a big news week, and this is the big news item yesterday and today. I do think people are watching. I think people feel frustrated that Congress can't come together with the president on this. You know, Congressman Norman underscored at a really important point in his interview just a little bit ago. He mentioned that, you know, the federal budget in 2019 is going to be $4.4 trillion. And Congress and the president are basically arguing over about $3.5 billion for border security. That's less than 0.1%. It's such a small amount of money, given all the things that Congress and the president need to do. So they ought to come together. And I think when the American people put that in perspective, I think they get angry at everyone in government.
You know, there's this idea that the government should run, it should function, that shutdowns shouldn't happen, but they have, and historically, particularly in the 70s and 80s, far more common. Less common in recent era, with the exception of last January, of course. Let's talk about what this could potentially mean for the President of the United States. He's gone back and forth about who gets the blame for this. The Democrats have tried to bill this as the Trump shutdown, but take a listen to the President.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck. I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it.
And, of course, he shifted gears on Twitter, writing the Democrats now own the shutdown in short order. But the DNC just put out a statement not too long ago calling him a failed deal maker with the temperament of a toddler. So it's a pretty harsh dig here on Christmas weekend, as everyone's supposed to be negotiating up there on Capitol Hill and working towards a solution. Julio, what do you think? Can we get close to things if there's this sort of seeming animosity between the sides?
Well, they definitely need to. The one thing I will say is this. The president has extended the olive branch on several occasions, even at his own peril. You know, he's been criticized by conservatives and members of the Republican Party for having Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in at the White House trying to work these things out. He extended the olive branch 3 weeks before DACA expired. He was willing to grant some semblance of legalization to upwards of 1.8 million illegal residents. So the fact of the matter is, all these issues related to illegal immigration and the fact that we can't do comprehensive immigration reform falls right on the shoulders of the Democrats, because Donald Trump has been more than willing to come to the table and grant concessions.
All right. Thank you both very much, David. I'm sorry you raised a lot of important issues, but I'm being told we're running a little short on time here. David Tafuri, Julio Rivera, we appreciate it. Thanks for joining us both.
Thank you so much, and happy holidays.
You too.
The program. We're just thanks. We're just having a conversation here at the Glenn Beck program about James Mattis walking away and resigning yesterday because the president just announced, we're going to leave Syria. And one of the reasons, supposedly, is because Turkey told the president, we're going to go in and get the Kurds. And now that would make me say, no, you're not. As the Kurds are always abandoned. They will be dead.
How many times have we turned our back on the Kurds?
Always.
Would this be 100? It's a lot.
Every time.
It's a lot of times.
Every time. And it's wrong. And there will be genocide with the Kurds. And any Christian that was hoping things were going to get better, forget about that. We have just handed the region over to Iran, Turkey, and Russia. Very bad. Very bad. Pat said when he came in, I don't really care about the Mattis thing. I can't find a way to care about this. Why?
Because I don't know that anybody, I don't know that Trump listens to anybody anyway. I don't know if it matters who's in there. I think he's doing what he wants to do. And I think this is a really good indication of that.
I don't know.
Mattis
I think
certainly doesn't want to pull out of Syria.
It's always been said that he respects his generals. Now, maybe not anymore with Kelly and Mattis.
They're all gone. There's no more generals left.
But those two, I really, truly believe. I don't know if they voted for Donald Trump or believe Donald Trump. They might have. They might not have. I think those two served out of duty and responsibility to the Constitution and to the America that they understand and love. And I could see Mattis looking and saying, look, I don't necessarily agree with this guy on everything, but someone has to be a stable rod, and I will be that guy. And
he can't do it anymore.
That's not good.
Can't do it.
That's really not good.
But I think that's where I think that's where people are with what's going on now. And when they can't convince him not to pull out of Syria because it's way too soon and there's way too much to be done.
But you can. Look at what's happening now with the border wall. All of a sudden, he's back on the border wall.
Back on.
Why? Because he does listen to the voice of the people and his supporters.
Well, yeah, I think when Fox News turns on him and starts saying negative things about him, because they never do, I think he took notice of that. I think he took notice. Because you even had Brian Kilmeade criticizing him openly this week, and that kind of doesn't happen.
No.
And Rush had criticized him.
Yeah. In a gentle way.
Mark Levin was critical of the Syria move.
He got some really harsh. I mean, his supporters were really, really harsh on him about that.
Well, the wall thing was.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, that you can't go back. As who was it that said? I thought this was a great quote. Oh, Ben Shapiro. This is read my lips, no new taxes. That's what that is. You cave on that. But I think this one has possibly even more significant ramifications.
Going forward, straight up, strategically, this is a nightmare. A straight-up nightmare. If you don't like the United States to be the policeman of the world, then you want these 2,000 U.S. troops still there. And that sounds weird. But the moment we pull out of there, you are almost guaranteeing that a much larger U.S. force will have to go back in the very near future. You're almost guaranteeing it because you just handed the region over to Iran. Now, if you just don't even think about what happened to the Kurds, if that doesn't bother you at all, that they're all about thousands and thousands of people are just about to die.
A whole race of people, a whole culture is going to be wiped off the map. And then the Christians are next. I mean, this is not good.
What is Netanyahu saying today? I haven't really seen, but they've got to be livid over this. Got to be like, you would not make this decision. Not only would you not make the decision without talking to General Mattis in the Pentagon, which it sounds like he didn't at all. But you also wouldn't make this decision without consulting your other allies. When Mattis says, our allies are important, he's also talking about them. Mm-hmm. He's talking about everyone in the region who is now like, oh my gosh, Iran is now back in play. Like they were getting beaten back, but they're now back in play.
Look at Saudi Arabia. I'm convinced the Khashoggi thing was only really a story, not because he was a member of the press, but because those forces that were for the Iranian deal and are not necessarily on our side, they were for the Arab Spring and they were for, let's go topple Libya and let's go arm what now is ISIS, let's go topple Syria. Those people are the same people that were all upset about Khashoggi. Well, what has Khashoggi done? Khashoggi has seriously damaged Saudi Arabia in the Middle East, also the whole world, obviously, but the Middle East, and has led to us making sure that we're not helping them in Yemen. I mean, Saudi Arabia is on the ropes in the last month because of their mistake with Khashoggi, but the way it was portrayed by the press you can now have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia. This is just snowballed for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia will join with Russia. If they don't have the United States, they will join with Russia on oil. They will join with